COVID-19, the disease that originated in China in late 2019, has now transformed into a global pandemic. It has affected our economies, our jobs, the stock market, and our way of life. As it brings uncertainty to many parts of our lives, this series is our conversations with the companies, the players, the decision makers, to help us make sense of it all. Welcome to COL Conversations.
Hello everyone, welcome to this COVID-19 special feature of COL Insights. I'm April Tan, COL's Chief Equity Strategist. And here today we are joined by Mr. Alvin Lao, President and CEO of DNL Industries, one of the country's leading manufacturers. They customize raw materials for food, plastics, chemicals, and aerosols, and sell materials for the auto, oil, gas, personal care, and home care industries. Mr. Lao will be sharing with us valuable first-hand, on-the-ground account of how their business and even the whole manufacturing sector is handling this crisis. We'll also get his thoughts on the learnings and opportunities they see arising from this unprecedented situation. So, Alvin, good morning and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
How are you? Yeah?
I'm
Are
good.
you doing well?
We're okay.
Still healthy?
I've been coming into the office every day since the quarantine started. So yes, still okay.
Okay, that's good. How's the health of your employees? Do you have any cases of PUIs, PUMs?
Thankfully, no cases so far. We are enforcing a lot of prevention para hindi magkaroon.
So skeletal force and all of those, safety procedures like social distancing, you're doing all of that.
Yes, correct. That's right.
Okay.
And lucky for us, since we make disinfectant and alcohol, we have a lot of supplies to do all the disinfecting.
You're not encountering difficulties in procuring them unlike the others.
So far, tuloy-tuloy pa rin.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you announced financial assistance to employees, assuring them of their salaries.
Mm-hmm.
So does this include employees who don't go to work or those who work from home?
So
all of them get something?
Yes, everyone, regardless of if they're coming in or not, are paid a salary during this ECQ. And we extended it even to our outsourced service providers. So even janitors who are not coming in, security guards, and so on. So everyone who works for the company is getting paid.
That's good. And you announced a 100 million peso assistance to employees and donations to institutions that will be shouldered by the company. Is this DNL or is this the Lao Foundation who will be shouldering the 100 million assistance?
It's combined. The bulk of it is from DNL. Then we also have our foundation, Lao Foundation, and we also have some from family members as well. So it's from the whole group.
So can you discuss like some of the things you've been doing with the donations for the others, for example, like what precisely have you been doing?
It's a range of things, from donating alcohol, disinfectants. We've also donated cash for various efforts. And cash also for our scholars. We have 99 scholars that we're giving extra assistance to because our scholars come from the poorest of the poor, and we know that our scholars' parents are most likely having difficulty earning income right now. So we're also donating masks. So it's across a whole range of activities.
Okay. So, let's go naman to the operations talaga, no?
Sure.
I'm sure you're encountering a lot of challenges
Mm-hmm.
to maybe the business.
Yes.
Okay, so how are you addressing that? The business, like, for example, suppliers and even the
Mm-hmm.
sales. So, what are the
Mm-hmm.
mitigating measures that you're doing?
Okay. So we're lucky that we usually maintain or have been maintaining inventory levels of roughly 100 days. In terms of the bulk of our inventory, we haven't really run out much. Actually, ever since China started their lockdown a couple of months ago, we already started sourcing a lot of our materials, uh, trying to look for alternate suppliers to those which were importing from China. So the last couple of months, we had some delays, but eventually we were able to figure things out, and our inventory levels normalized. So after 2.5 weeks of the ECQ, our inventory levels are still quite healthy. So from a supply perspective, there are really no issues. Even for the products that were the raw materials we're importing, although medyo mabagal sa ports ngayon, I understand the delay can be up to a week because of the ports themselves are operating at skeletal arrangement. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin, nakakapasok pa rin.
What about the sales? Like, I mean, what % of sales were affected?
Okay, so it's still too early to tell exactly, but definitely we're not running at full capacity right now for a lot of our operations that are allowed to operate. So right now, our businesses which are allowed to operate probably make up, I'd say, over 60% of our regular revenue. So food as a percent of revenue makes up, I think, about 57% of our total revenue. That was as of last year. And our food business, I'd say anywhere from 60 to 70%. It's now running at 60 to 70% of where it normally runs at. Then we have our biodiesel business. Biodiesel is still, surprisingly, still going strong. I think it's because a lot of our oil company customers were already importing or had shipments of fuel or diesel coming in, which needs to be mixed. Biodiesel needs to be mixed kasi it's required by law. So because of that, tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung sales ng biodiesel. Then we have our exports. So exports make up 20% of our revenue. So that's still continuing. And then we have disinfectants, alcohol. So the alcohol business actually did not exist a month ago. So this is a new business which we just started doing very, very well. But aside from alcohol, we have other disinfectants, which we were active in before. That's also grown a lot. So I'd say overall demand right now, we're probably running at roughly 60% of compared to where it was, let's say, in January. So there is a noticeable slowdown. However, that's during this ECQ. After the ECQ is lifted, I think because most of what we make are what you would consider very basic ingredients and materials. So we see a nice recovery, a decent recovery at least. Maybe not to full where it was in January, not a full recovery, but it should be quite a good recovery from the current 60%.
So just want to clarify again on the food business, for example, we know that some of it goes to the restaurants like Jollibee,
Yes.
the fast food
Yeah.
company. So
Correct.
those would be definitely affected, no?
Mhm.
But around 60% goes to the likes of CNPF, URC. So
Yes.
those should be okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
mga 60 of the 60 or 60 of the 57 is okay.
Yes. Correct.
Then mga 40% would go to the mga restaurants and
Yeah.
that's more vulnerable. So yun, tama yung
Correct.
understanding namin.
It's the mall-based food outlets that are severely affected. Those food companies which already had delivery and online options, they're doing much better now. I think that's something the food industry is probably realizing now, that even if the quarantine is lifted later, the mall traffic may take time to come back. And I just read an article kanina from South China Morning Post that in China, like Walmart, for example, they're only at 50% even after opening for roughly a week. So definitely here, the same thing will happen. It'll take time for things to come back to normal. But those which are able to deliver and provide online payments and so forth, looks like they're in a better position.
Yeah, okay. So actually one of the uso topics right now is your view on the recovery. Just want to ask, do you think we'll see in your opinion, is it going to be a V-shaped recovery for DNL, or is it going to be a U-shaped recovery? And what's the reason for that view?
Okay. So as a businessman, I'm normally optimistic by nature. And from what we can see, again, because most of the industries we serve are quite basic, for us, it will likely be more a V-shaped recovery, meaning it will likely pick up quite fast. Again, it's because most of what we sell does not really cater to the higher end of the market, or what you would call luxury, or so being a more basic oriented company, our recovery would likely be faster than most of the other companies.
Okay, so at least that's good to know. But compared to last year, do you think last year wasn't really a very good year for DNL.
Yes.
So what about this year? Do you think can the company deliver flat earnings at least? Or parang, well, that's already on the optimistic side.
Yeah, we're finalizing our forecasts, and a lot of it depends on how long this ECQ will be and whether it's extended and in what form. So all of our forecasts, which we were working hard on, the last couple of quarters, were all thrown out the window now. Right now, we're not in a position yet to make any forecasts. What I can say is that the recovery or the removal of the quarantines, we should be among the first to recover quickly.
Okay, that's good to know. One of the other issues right now is cash. Interest rates are going up in the secondary market, etc.
Yes.
So, are you encountering any challenges as far as cash is concerned, or liquidity problems?
So, lucky for us, we've always run a very conservative ship. Right now, well, as of end of 2019, our net gearing was roughly 8%. So we're not heavily geared. We have a lot of lines with our bank, so access to liquidity is not an issue for us. We have had some banks who came to us and wanted to raise their rates, but so that's actually something that's kept me busy for the last couple of days, explaining to them that we're actually still operating, and we see a quick recovery after this. So I believe because of the explanation, they've been able to extend lower rates for us. So we're probably we're still getting lower rates than what you would normally find in the market now.
But that said, lower rates compared to the market, but compared to, say, January or last year, how do rates compare? Have they gone up or not?
So our average borrowing rate first week of March was probably around 4.25%. So we're now probably at around 4.8 right now. If I had to, I'm not sure of the exact, pero more or less siguro mga 4.8.
Yeah, around 60 basis points.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tumas ng konti, pero hopefully as we keep explaining that things are okay, and what we're doing siguro, well, what I can tell you is we're monitoring our receivables very closely. So I'm getting regular reports, more regular than normal. We've communicated to all our sales guys na they need to make tutok on the receivables, and as much as possible, even to sell COD or cash on delivery or advance payments. So yeah, it's something that we're closely monitoring. And hopefully it's a message that our banks will eventually see now. We're not really that badly affected. So hopefully to be able to convince them that they can continue to give better rates for us.
Yeah, so speaking of receivables, how are they pala? I mean, you seem to be doing well, but the question is, are the other people doing well, or are they being affected? And how's the general sentiment, the confidence of the business community?
Okay, so everyone has taken a very conservative approach as far as cash, and we're the same. So we're also requesting for longer payment terms with our suppliers, some which we've been able to get. We are communicating a lot with our customers. First, making sure they're okay. Also communicating that we are okay. We're letting them know that we are open for business as usual for those activities which are allowed to operate. And we are open to dialogue in terms of payments for their receivables. So we're not closing the door to any of our customers. We're continuing to communicate with them. And this is something that we're kind of, this is an event which for a lot of the younger people is very new, but for the older generation, we can remember, everything from global financial crisis, Asian financial crisis, all the problems we had in the 80s and even earlier. Medyo may script na kami, in other words, how to deal with crises. So we're just going back to the same script. It's essentially, we've dealt with issues before, crisis before. So we kind of know what to do now because of that.
So can you share with us what were the lessons that you've learned from those crises in the past that you are applying today, that you're very thankful that you already knew, na at least now it's helping you cope better?
Well, things like anything that we do or invest in, kailangan long-term perspective. So for example, we started an expansion in Batangas a little over a year ago, late part of 2018. And so right now, construction is stopped because construction is not one of the allowed activities. But once construction is allowed again, we'll proceed. We don't. So again, because we saw that expansion as a long-term project, and we know the value of the long-term viability of this expansion, it's something that we know we want to do. So, compared to if we were just looking at this as a short-term opportunistic endeavor, the story might be different. And the other is probably our attitude towards cash and debt. We've never been a highly indebted company. We've always been very conservative. And it's, in the Philippines, I can remember during our IPO, some fund managers actually called us as having a lazy balance sheet because we were net cash after the IPO. But, I could always remember thinking, this is the Philippines. You can never be too conservative being in the Philippines. We have so many typhoons hitting us. You never know when the next earthquake or volcanic eruption is going to hit and so on. So, it pays to be conservative being in the Philippines. And so all those lessons we learned from many years ago, decades ago, parang ingrained na sa amin. It's part of how we do business.
What about this COVID-19 crisis? I mean, are there new lessons you're learning, or are you seeing opportunities as well? I mean, as you've said, you're an optimist. So, anything, different,
Yeah. So earlier I mentioned we did not sell our own alcohol a month ago. So now we do. We're definitely looking at other opportunities. I can't talk about all of them now because it's still too early and we haven't decided which ones we'll proceed with. But definitely, so one thing we've realized is we're thankful that we've stuck to our core competence in terms of R&D and sticking to basic products, basic raw materials, which are going into basic necessities. So that is something that we will continue to do. It's also making us realize what sectors or opportunities we can do more in. So things like, which of our customers are more catered to working online, for example, or have a more robust disaster recovery plan, or yung mga those which are not so exposed to retail at the malls. So things like that. We're looking at it not just from a product perspective, but even from an industry perspective as well.
So any, say, permanent changes in attitudes, like people right now, for example, are talking about maybe people being more accepting for work from home, maybe a greater pickup of the delivery business, or I mean, it will accelerate people going online. So are you seeing certain things like that as far as your business is concerned, the mga changes in behavior, that will happen because of COVID-19?
Yes, definitely. Well, I'm not ashamed to say that there were some people in our company who had never experienced video conferencing before the quarantine happened. Ngayon, they have experienced it. They're not so shy from using it anymore. So reliance on online tools, whether it's Google Docs, Google Sheets, or Zoom, or any other online facilities, definitely. So spending on IT, for example. So our tech spend last year, I think, went up by 30% roughly. Looks like it's something that we will continue to be increasing our investments in. So yes, a lot of things which will be definitely more open to. And so it's not just the attitude of the company, but the attitude of a lot of people in our company as well, open to more new things.
Okay, so you talked about your expansion plans that, when you do an expansion, it's really for the long term. So I'm guessing that the expansion plan, the new plant that you were planning to build, will still push through.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah,
correct.
Once all this ECQ is lifted and everything.
That's right. So we are, we really want to do things on a long-term perspective, as I mentioned earlier. And so this expansion was really to reach a lot of our long-term targets. So for example, increasing our exports percent of revenue, and providing our company a more robust location. So for example, if something happened in Metro Manila, which ironically is happening now, we should have a location which we can still continue to operate out of. So that was one reason why we are doing the expansion in Batangas. It provides that automatic backup or resiliency for us. So yes, tuloy pa rin yung expansion.
Yeah, and the funding is already secure for the Batangas project.
So we don't have a lot of long-term debt. Actually, right now, we don't have any long-term debt. We have a lot of short-term debt at our disposal. My hesitation going to long-term is just the rates. The difference between long-term and short-term in the Philippines is just too wide. So if and when the time comes and long-term rates really come down, so 5 years ago, I remember we were able to tie up or take out a 5-year loan at 4%. From one of the big banks. So when that opportunity comes back, that's probably the time we'll execute for a long-term instrument. But right now, wala. It's not available, right?
Like, I
Yeah.
guess, since everybody is so risk averse right now, my last question would be, what are the biggest risks that you're worried about right now? Like, what makes you lose sleep at night?
Sure. Right now, so I think right now we're doing the right things in the Philippines. The government, for all intents and purposes, as a whole, seems to have the right strategy, doing the right things. My biggest worry is that there won't be enough parties cooperating. I think at this point in time, we all need to forget, whose side you're on. We all need to just focus that, we're all in this together, and we all need to continue to cooperate and to fight the enemy. So the enemy is the coronavirus. That's what we all need to focus on. I think so yan yung worry ko. If people lose focus on that and start worrying about the smaller petty things, then we might lose track and lose sight of what the main objective is. So that's my hope, that people continue to remember to focus and remember that we just have one enemy and we need to get over this.
Yeah, I guess the sooner that we are able to beat the COVID-19
Yes.
pandemic, then
Yes.
it's good for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. So, everybody who trades in the market actually
Mhm.
inaabangan if the family is buying back shares. So
Sure.
just wondering the share price is so cheap. So
Yes.
do you have like a formal share buyback program? And if not, like, because I remember you were saying about how the family members are buying the shares.
Mhm.
But is there really a trigger which causes family members to buy? Like, nag-uusap ba kayo? Or wala,
Okay.
feel ko lang, like, mataas ang dividend or things like that.
Okay. So I don't want anyone to front run the company, but I think if you look at the disclosures, you'll see that all the way down to 4 pesos, the family's been buying. So it's been the shareholders of DNL, not DNL itself, that has been buying the shares. DNL kasi, it needs to conserve cash. We've got the big expansion coming up. But the shareholders, so the family, both the holding company as well as on an individual level, we do have discussions, but we don't have any formal agreements. Everyone is really free to do their own purchases. But I think what's going on is, so we saw the share price fall to 4 pesos in the last couple of weeks, and a lot of shares were bought. Now it's gone up close to 5. So everyone is just saving their bullets. Actually, I think everyone is waiting to buy more, but they don't want to buy, the cheaper the better, diba? So everyone is waiting for the price to come down again, and they'll probably buy again. But yeah, a lot of family members, they actually want to buy. Kasi at this price, just look at the dividend yield. I think we're at 3+%. Parang it's easy money na eh, diba? So sayang naman.
Yeah. At may nagtatanong din, how secure are the cash dividends? Matutuloy bang payback? Kasi maraming nagka-cancel ngayon, di ba?
Yes. I think, so we have to look at the numbers for the second quarter first, before we can make a decision. It's too early to tell because the quarantine just started, a couple of weeks ago. So we will take a look at the numbers, and probably we can make a decision in a couple of months.
Okay. So tuloy naman siguro may payout. The question is how much?
That's a likely scenario, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, those are all the questions I have. So any closing thoughts that you may have before we end our webinar?
No, that's about it. Well, I'm thankful that we have a lot of businesses online which are operating, and credit to the COL Financial team. No palpak as far as the website. Everything is smooth running. A lot of people may not appreciate, but I'm sure a lot of your team are on the ball, making sure everything's up and running. So congratulations.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you, Alvin, for agreeing to be part of our COL Insights. And we wish you all the best. Stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thanks, April. You too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it was an interesting discussion with Mr. Alvin Lao, and some of the key takeaways that we were able to get include that, first of all, yes, the company is not immune to the COVID-19 crisis. They are operating below capacity, but that said, it seems like the company is coping very well. Based on our discussions, it seems that they are operating at around 60% capacity, since they have a diverse set of customers, and some customers are still doing well, like the food manufacturers, those that produce canned goods. They're still coping very well because demand is very strong, and these are for basic goods. And they said, for example, they're also producing alcohol right now, which is very much in demand. Okay, so we were a bit surprised that they remain very optimistic, notwithstanding the COVID-19 crisis going on. So another takeaway is that one of the reasons why they're doing well is because they applied the lessons that they learned from the past crisis. For example, they said that they think long term when they do investments, it's not an opportunistic investment to take advantage of the present situation, but rather long-term trends. That's how they think, and they said that they will continue with their Batangas expansion. And another lesson that they've learned from the past that they will continue is to remain conservative as far as borrowings are concerned, maintaining some level of cash. So the company really has a very healthy balance sheet with a lot of cash. And I think this optimism is displayed in the action of the family, because you will notice how the family members are actually buying back the shares of DNL in the open market. Every time somebody sells it and it reaches the 4 peso level, you will see family members actually buying the stocks. And it's not just one family member. You would see several members of the family buying the stocks. And another key takeaway would be that the company will always try to maintain their culture of innovation. They will always try to see where the opportunities are, and they will try to take advantage of it and continue to innovate.